We are here to speak about not air pollution as a challenge, but air pollution as an opportunity for how we can join forces and work together. Some very powerful stats that I want to throw at all of you, and I'm sure many of you may have heard. There are 7 million deaths annually that are caused due to air pollution. And do you know the number that hits Asia Pacific out of those 7 million? 70% of those deaths are actually from Asia Pacific. 100 children under 5 die every day due to air pollution. And the World Bank estimates that health damages amounting to 8.1 trillion US dollars, or you can say 6% of the global GDP, is caused due to air pollution. OECD projects that by 2060, annually number of working days lost for employees would be 3.7 billion. Despite all these staggering numbers, there's less than 1% of international development funding that goes on air pollution. Isn't this surprising? Living in a pollution-free environment is a fundamental right now declared by the Supreme Court of India. And there are many courts across the world that are declaring this as a right. All of us do have the right to breathe clean, free air. And I must also say, you must have heard multiple line ministries owning their respective challenges, but not one single ministry owning air pollution as a challenge. It cuts across at least 9 to 10 line ministries within the government. Unfortunately, falls into the crack by not literally getting owned by any. It is undoubtedly a complex challenge. It needs a systems approach, and it needs multi-stakeholder collaboration to find solutions. So with this powerful panel today, we are going to discuss not just the experiences, but ways, opportunities, and ideas of how we can tackle the air pollution challenge in Asia. Maybe I begin with the first question. My first question is for Anuj. So, and the first question is actually focused on more on challenges and opportunities. So it is a common question to all our panelists. So, in your opinion, Anuj, what are the most pressing challenges and barriers in combating air pollution in our region, especially in large cities like Bangkok, Islamabad, India? And where do you see this as an opportunity? A lot of working days are missed, and if employees breathe clean air, the working days would get saved. If children breathe clean air, the missed school days would get saved. So where do you see this as an opportunity?
Lovely. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. Yes, it's a supremely complicated issue because unlike water, for example, you have a Ministry of Water. Air cuts across so many different sectors. So, for us, at ADB, when we look at the issue, you always sort of look at three big issues. One is the big challenge in terms of institution. So is it one ministry? Is it seven? And how do you bring those 7 agencies together? That's one part of it. Government institutional structures, where it works. For example, you see, something very high level pulled together by the leader of a country, pulling various ministries together. So sectors, crossing various sectors. I think the second is in terms of regulations, but more than regulations, enforcement of those regulations. So you can have a lot of policies in countries saying, we'll shut down an industry. For example, it doesn't, treat its waste or solid waste, etc. But can you shut down a city? Can you shut down various industries, especially if they're contributing to GDP? It's been a big issue in terms of enforcement and putting together regulations. And I think for me, the third is finance. So, we'll talk again about numbers, which are required for financing, immense amount. And, if you just look at climate financing needs in Southeast Asia, you need $211 billion a year. In ASEAN alone, Thailand probably needs something like around 20 billion a year. Now, to get that money in, you need private sector. For the private sector to come in, the underlying projects need to be bankable. It's easier when you're talking about renewable energy, a plant, but when you're talking about clean air projects, many of which are not bankable, the money doesn't flow. So how do you make that happen? If it flows, there's immense potential for new type of jobs in high technology, but also there's immense amount of potential to reform institutional structures, especially at city government levels. So that's a quick sort of snapshot.
Thank you so much, Anuj. Professor Kalungnij, maybe the civil society view of the challenge versus opportunity.
Thank you. For from the side of people, this is the big structural change. Not only the theories or principles, but also the paradigm. We are talking a lot about the air pollution base, but this time we need to go further to cross the border from air pollution management to clean air management. So that requires a lot of change, institutional change, financing change, but the most important thing is the mental change, because most people still hang around the air pollution management as only one way to tap up with the clean air. But it doesn't guarantee always that once you manage very well on air pollution management, you're gonna have the clean air automatically. The second one is about the health dimension versus environmental dimension. WHO had a big warning long time ago that these two dimensions should not be separated from each other. But look, we have separate ministries between Ministry of Health and Ministry of Environment, first of all. Plus, we have scattering around legislations and policies on the two issues separately. So finally, to deal with clean air agenda at any level, you need to how to energize and how to synergize the two dimensions together. Otherwise, things gonna not be changed that much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kun Kalungnij. Kun Simapon, the government view of the challenge versus opportunity.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. Before I answer your question, I would just like to say that we have to realize that we all create air pollution every day in any way in our life, right? So I would like everybody to recognize that air pollution is not just a pollution, but it's how we live our life. Right, we need to have human rights to breathe in the clean air, but it's also our responsibility as well, right? That's why we come together today. And for the challenge that I still feel that we still have in our region is, of course, transboundary, right? And the midst of cooperation, sometimes like Professor Kanungni just addressed that we have like separate work, we work like silo, but in order to solve air pollution, right, we need to think about three things. First, you need to reduce emission source, right? Second, you need to communicate, right? And the most important thing is to take care of your people. You need to take care of the public health, especially vulnerable group. So my my optimization is cooperation, of course, and multi-stakeholder working so that we can beat air pollution like Thailand trying to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kun Simapon. That was super optimistic view coming from the government champion. All right, so coming to the private sector view of air pollution, Joseph.
Yeah, it's really great to hear from the other stakeholders talking about it from such a high strategic level, right? I think from the private sector view, from our perspective, just to give some background, Bosch is a German company. We're active in the mobility sector, industrial sector. So these are all, of course, very relevant to this discussion. And in terms of the challenges, I would say there are three aspects to it. The first is financial. Moving into, let's say, cleaner technologies and so on, of course, requires upfront costs, upfront research, upfront capital expenditures, and so on. So how to bridge that financial requirement, of course, for mass adoption of cleaner solutions is one of the challenges. The second one is technological. Are there the solutions available? Or maybe in certain parts of the world, the access for local expertise or reliance on imported technologies are some barriers towards faster scale up because it affects, of course, the ability to roll out, scale, maintain, service, and adopt these technologies in these countries or regions. And the third aspect that plays a big part, of course, is, as was mentioned, is the regulatory environment, because policy, of course, is one of the big drivers for shaping adoption of different solutions, different guidelines in terms of cleaner technologies. So I think working hand in hand about all three aspects, when there are policy drives towards, for example, cleaner technologies, better emission standards, for example, it's a very concrete one, then from the private sector, they have to step up, develop the necessary technologies and solutions that can meet these kinds of tighter standards. But at the same time, all sectors have to look into how do we make it financially and economically viable, because that's the only way to make it sustainable. And you can do that, of course, from policy mandates, but at the other side, you can also look into incentive frameworks. How do you incentivize adoption of cleaner tech? Because you already mentioned there are hidden costs to pollution in terms of healthcare costs and, of course, lost productivity. So that can be monetized. And then using that in terms of savings, you can use that to incentivize adoption of all of these cleaner tech and solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. The brilliant side of the cost, approach of air pollution as an opportunity. Asim, you'd actually come from the civil society plus innovative finance lens. So, what's in your view the challenge versus opportunity?
Thank you so much. For the air pollution is a complex, multidimensional crisis with distinct yet interconnected challenges. I've unpacked those. The first is legislative and regulatory gaps, where we see the not very empowered policies and enforcement is still a big challenge. Second is business practices, where the industries continue polluting due to their outdated methods and weak accountability. The third, the something is producing in China, for instance, and traveling on the road, crossing Asia, in Asia, India, and Pakistan, and polluting due to the consumption and coming all these stuffs on a fossil fuel, petrol and stuff on the trucks, and also polluting our cities. Fourth is the South Asia has a unique source from crop burning to the industrial emissions, that the region faces distinct pollution sources. The fifth is the resource mobilization, where we see the financial industry is not ready to change the model, for instance, repurposing the finance, putting the people and the planet at first and profit at the second. Lastly, health and economic crises, especially the cities like Islamabad, where the tropospheric ozone levels are high. Our talent, our labor force, our citizens are suffering because of that ozone level. In terms of climate finance, in total, annually, we need up till the 2030, $2 trillion. But the real challenge is, like Oxfam's Shadow Report on Climate Finance 2024 states clearly that we need this money as a grants. Right now, it's as a form of a loan. So because of the loaning, the developing countries consider as a debt trap. So going into the debt trap is really a barrier going to invest in the air pollution tackling. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. You highlighted a very important aspect of loans versus grants, the need for for change and also reform in financing air pollution. We are moving to the second segment, but a request to my audience: please keep your questions ready because towards the end of the three segments that we do, we'll also open the floor up for questions. So the second segment is more about showcasing the power of partnerships and innovation. Let me ask this question first to Khun Sivapon. The Pollution Control Department of Thailand is spearheading so many initiatives, specifically also on transboundary air pollution. How do you see the power of innovation, which is data, digital, and partnerships in tackling this complex challenge that you are spearheading?
Thank you for the question. Actually, I always say that data is power, but partnership is even more. If we have data, we can communicate to our public, like we can influence policymaker to allocate any budget. And to without any good data, we're not going to have policy, we're not going to have strategy or action plan or even measure. So, like take Thailand for example, we invest with the air quality data monitoring network with a big money. We have been trying to set up our network like for over 30 years. And right now we have like almost complete system across the country. Right now we have like 100 ambient air quality monitoring in Thailand across the country, and we can share the data right to all sector. And we utilize it, fully utilize it. First, we inform our public, right? Then they know the state of air quality. They can adjust their activity during the high season. Second one, we communicate to the government or all stakeholder to share their responsibility and their role in terms of air quality management. And the most important thing is we do early warning system. Right? We apply the modeling to forecast air pollution 7 days in advance, and we public to all stakeholders, to all kind of media. Um, but one thing we need to accept that it's expensive to do that, right? But when we compare to the cost of economic loss from health that we treat people from air quality, air pollution problem, is much lower. Thailand with UNEP, with UNEP, we used to study the cost of inaction. If Thailand cannot implement the policy to control PM 2.5, including transboundary haze, we gonna lose 2% GDP by 2030. That is just next 5 years. So we need to invest in terms of air pollution monitoring, air pollution management, and also for health protection. We also use a lot of budget of the budget to do the best healthcare for our people. And this data, this whole system of data also linked to partnership, right? Because partnership, they know they're concerned about the problem and they have willingness to join with the government to work together. One of the good I would call best practices, but for me, I don't like much best practices. I want to scale it up. I think we have too many best practices. We need to scale it up to make it sustain, right? But still, we have the good one, like, you know, that we have a big problem with open burning, right? Forest open burning. So we try to change, we make a partnership with the one who burn. We try to change them, bring them to be with the government, change them from burning forest to guard the forest. And then we can reduce air pollution problem in the northern part of Thailand. In conclusion, we also engage all kind of sector, especially like civil society, like Professor Kanungnis. She is very important to the role to leverage our work, especially for Clean Air Act, right? And all kind of sector, government, private company, businesses, civil society, academic, and everyone, not just only in Thailand, but in our region, especially in Mekong sub-region, there's still a lot of room and a lot of gap to fulfill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khonsivapon. And for those who don't know, Khonsivapon is also known as Miss Mekong because she does a lot of advocacy across transboundary air pollution. So thank you, Miss Mekong. All right, so the next question is for Joseph. So, Joseph, how is the private sector innovating to improve air quality? As a global company, how does Bosch balance innovation with sustainability to ensure its products and operations contribute to cleaner air?
Thank you for this question. I think that's exactly the key point, right? That innovation can go hand in hand with sustainability. It's not that it has to be one or the other. So for us, and it's been mentioned several times already in this panel, one is definitely we have to engage with multiple stakeholders because the topic is really very complex and wide-ranging. So for us, engaging with the public sector, even with academic institutions, the financial institutions as well, to understand, okay, where's the direction? Where's the policy movement going? What are the kinds of solutions that are needed or prioritized? And then we try to act or adapt ourselves to move in these kind of directions. One concrete example, for example, is emission legislation. If higher emission standards are going to be on the roadmap, then we try to come with the necessary innovations to try to meet those higher standards and make them available. So another one that we incorporate into our own product development process is what we call DFE, Design for Environment. It's a framework in terms of how we design products and innovations and technologies from the design itself, the type of production process that we develop that tries to, for example, use less raw materials, that uses more efficient processes that reduce wastage or scrap material at the end of the production process towards even end of life of during the product life cycle, whether it can be recycled, whether it can be reused, and so on. So that's also part of how we try to develop our innovations for a more sustainable outcome, designed for environment. And you mentioned about innovation and sustainability. I give two concrete examples of innovations and developments that we've done that also contribute to this direction. One is we are in the energy sector. We develop industrial boilers. These are boilers used in industrial processes to generate steam and heat, for example. And currently, they burn hydrocarbons to generate the heat and steam. Aside from, of course, continuing to develop and increase the efficiency of these boilers, which then help to, of course, reduce emissions, we've also developed a line of electric boilers. Of course, you have to look further up the upstream and then make sure that the energy source for the electricity, of course, is also sustainable. But that's another step of in terms of what we can do and contribute. And the third one is we've also developed a line of boilers that can use hydrogen as fuel. So this is just one example. The other one is in the mobility sector. We also see it as a transformation now, moving towards more electrification, hybrids, battery electric vehicles. There will be a need to have a solution for the batteries at the end of the product life cycle. So we've developed solutions that can deep discharge these used batteries at the end of their life and also automate the disassembly and recycling of the used car batteries. And so this is, again, another way where innovation and sustainability can go hand in hand to promote these kinds of cleaner technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. A classical example of design for environment is the sound system that is currently in the room is Bosch sound system. If you see, they have designed for the environment. So thank you so much, Joseph. My next question is for Anuj. So Anuj, air pollution is at an intersection of climate, finance, mobility, health, and infrastructure. And we keep saying it's a very complex problem. As a multilateral development bank, how is ADB investing, prioritizing, and working with all stakeholders to have a whole of society approach?
Thanks. So, let me give you three sort of examples of what we are doing at ADB. If you look at just project finance, ADB is known for financing infrastructure. We've probably financed something like around about $3 billion worth of air quality related projects. This would include part of the BTS in Thailand. Some of you may have seen the e-tuk-tuks project, which is happening over here with Move Me in Thailand. That is, the expansion of that is financed by ADB. We tend to do more things like this: transport, mobility, landfill, so capturing the solid waste management sort of issues. So there's a lot of individual project financing that we do. Number two is what I would call a programmatic approach, which is for technical assistance. So in 2022, we launched something called the Asia Blue Skies program. It's meant to help our developing member countries put in place policies and plans that includes, do we need to do something on carbon taxation? Do we need to do something on pollution charges? Develop institutional structures, roadmap for equality. All of that fits into this technical assistance, which is helping our countries develop air quality action plans, if you like. Number three is what I would call a programmatic financing approach. So not just a project by project approach, but a whole approach. And for this, I always talk about, the project I did, for example, in Indonesia, which is called the SDG Indonesia One Green Facility. So you work with an existing local bank, development bank such as PTSM in Indonesia, and you create a green facility within that, which can then reach out to not one, but 15 or 20 projects. Even more powerful than that project is the one which we did in PRC, People's Republic of China. That's called the Beijing Tianjin Hebei Air Quality Improvement Program. And that's been, since 2015 onwards. And this just shows you what all you need to do. We have done, I think, 3 or 4 different tranches or loans. First one was on policy for air quality, then regulation, then a green facility. Access to SMEs. So you need to do a lot. And the one thing that I always like to talk about in BTH, especially the China project, is the support to China in developing what I think were the first clean air bonds in Asia. So in 2022, clean air bonds were issued. I think this is under CESEP. Which attracted a lot of domestic financing for air quality improvement. And it's very nice because on one side, you're developing the list of projects. So it can go into solid waste, it can go into mobility. And on the other side, you're actually raising money from the market with some support from ADB to even make that concessional or affordable, etc. And then you have a lot more money flowing into many projects, not just one. So clean air bonds, I think, would be something that we really want to expand all over ASEAN, because it's not about the one project. It's about crowding in money for 100 projects across ASEAN. That's critical. That's sort of a quick snapshot, and we are trying, hopefully with PCD support and the government of Thailand, to develop a similar air program also for air and water combined for Thailand.
Thank you, Anuj. That was promising. Maybe moving to Asim. So Asim, how does financial policy influence air quality regulations? From your side of innovative financing and civil society approach, what role do sustainable finance initiatives play in driving corporate responsibility and ESG compliance?
Thank you. Right now, in 2023, Fair Finance Pakistan has conducted on ESG sustainability policy ranking among the commercial banks and targeted the largest commercial banks, 5 in the country. And we were very surprised they were scored only zero, near to zero in the investment of the nature, and the climate change they scored around 20%. So with this context, there is a huge need for innovate. Strategically, the banks are very much clear developing a plan. However, the product line, the portfolio, and the transaction level, they need a capacity building for coming out from the traditional model and accept that this is the accelerating problem of climate change, and we need an action plan, and we need to develop the product lines which helps the private sector. I can put the example in a way that the Fair Finance Pakistan Coalition is a good blend of the private sector and the civil society, which initiated the campaign on the clean air in the country. And after 3 years of successful advocacy, we are right now having a 9A article asserted in the Constitution of Pakistan, where we have seen the good driving force in the private sector is ready to adopt the new policies which save their children's life, their own business life, their employees' life. So that is the platform is ready to adapt the new approaches. Just need a finance to be ready to implement and giving our providing the good finance. As Anuj mentioned, the ADB is having a good approach as a multi-donor bank. So same way, the national commercial banks need to ready for those innovative products. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. We need more initiatives like yours and people like you, because the recent IQ Air survey is quite alarming. 3 out of 5 most polluted countries of the world are in Asia. One is India, the other one is Pakistan, the third one is Bangladesh. So it is undoubtedly a cause of concern, and we need more such, innovation and partnerships to drive, such collective action. Finally, Professor Kanungnij, how can we let go of the Clean Air Act, which is a citizen-driven act in Thailand, and it's actually it's leading by example across the globe of how this citizen movement led to multi-stakeholder collaboration towards regulatory vision. So please do share how all of these have joined forces to support Thailand's Clean Air Bill, and what are your key messages for countries driving citizen-led legislatures?
Thank you. Knowledge base is the first one that I prefer to put it as the front line, because ignorance is around for the invisible things. First of all, air is invisible. Second one, PM 2.5 and other toxic pollutants are invisible. And third one, right to clean air is invisible. So the triple kind of invisible make it very difficult to understand. So knowledge is required as the a must. And also our group believe in using knowledge first, use it as the foundation before making any kind of law and policy. Otherwise, stakeholders around will not really understand, or maybe understand different things on the same issues, or else the different paradigms, which is much worse. We did provide the 3 color concept papers: white paper, blue paper, and green paper on clean air before drafting the clean air bill. Also, we did the research and do the field work to collect all the knowledge from the ground to be used as a guide. However, this kind of multitask and multidiscipline kind of knowledge is bulky and very difficult to understand. We need to make the difficult knowledge to be much easier to understand by simplifying into the format that can be reached out to people around, the officers to be used, even the politician to support us in the parliament, which is not easy at all. As I mentioned before, that different people come from different backgrounds on the air pollution base, or clean air base, or the old paradigm, the new paradigm, etc. So the art and skill of communication for this kind of very complicated stuff need to be put in place. At the moment, we are proposing a project called Clean Air Studies for Clean Air Literacy for different stakeholders to join us to upgrade the understandings of the same direction on clean air bill. Probably after it passed the parliament within a couple months will be launched. However, this project going to be divided into three main pillars. The first one is about the clean air citizen science to promote more public participation. Second one is called Clean Air Legal Studies, and the third one is the Clean Air Citizen Finance. With all this stuff, we believe that the public awareness will help a lot to put the pressure on the ecosystem of the Thai system, not only politicians, but also the officers and the people at large. Once we do not have enough political will from government, then the public will is required through this kind of knowledge base to use it to move the big mountain to move for the better change.
Thank you, Dr. Kanonij. The political will versus people's will versus bureaucratic will. There are a lot of wills that we are fighting across and getting there where we are getting. Maybe now the next round is more about you'll hear our speakers speak about how they lead by example with their experiences. Maybe my first question for you, Anuj. Speaking of successful projects and investments, could you share an example of an air pollution related project that you think that countries in Asia can learn from?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to BTH, just because of the impact on the air quality of Beijing over the last, is it almost like 10 years now that the BTH Beijing Tianjin Hebei project has been working. And I think that programmatic approach is such a good example of what can be done to replicate. Now, of course, that was in a particular, let's say, sub province. But can that be replicated and scaled up for ASEAN? I think that's the million-dollar question of creating some sort of a programmatic fund and a facility based on either BTH or there's another very interesting project in Shandong in PRC, which is also a green fund. And there are elements of it which, it's worth highlighting. For example, when private sector has a really good technology, either to deploy or to develop, funding support is needed. Often not commercial financing because it may not be enough or it may be too expensive. So can a part of the fund, as is being done in BTH, be used to provide equity, short-term equity, or very, very concessional debt into deployment of such technologies is one side of the story. But the other side of the story is, and I always talk about an example from Uruguay, which is a bond which was issued in Uruguay, more focused on nature. The issue with bonds is that we can raise a lot of money from the market, but that is commercial financing. It may not always be able, we can't always turn it into a solid waste management project finance because it's expensive. So the Uruguay model is interesting because it raises money from the market and then there is support to reduce the cost of the coupon from development agencies like ourselves. So it's incentive-linked financing. So the greater the impact, so let's say air quality improvement, if you can track it and you basically say financing will flow from a development partner like ourselves, not to the project, but to reduce the cost of the bond that has been raised, that would be very interesting. PDMO itself in Thailand, just about, I think 3 months ago, did what they called a sustainability linked bond, an SLB, which again links the provision of finance to incentives which can be achieved, for a particular project. And I think that would be a really interesting model to bring into air. So I'm talking very heavily on financing sort of approaches because I think the issue is of scale and time. And so many of these programmatic approaches that I talk about is about how quickly can we raise money which is affordable and large scale for deployment into either public sector projects or private sector, such as Bosch. So development of these technologies, but then how do I put them into your wastewater, solid waste, urban transit sort of projects quickly and in an affordable fashion? So those are just some examples.
Thanks, Anuj. Those were interesting examples, and you led by examples. So, Kun Sirmapon, what have been your most successful policy innovations and initiatives when it comes to tackling air pollution in Thailand? I say Thailand, but you are open to cross the boundary.
Thank you very much. I would think back for over 20 years. It doesn't mean I'm old, but I'm just taking it as our most success story, even it long time ago, but I believe that we can still learn from it right now, is the implementation of vehicle and fuel quality standards to solve PM particulate matter in Bangkok. I say that because, right now, at that time we start from Euro 0, but right now Thailand is moving towards Euro 6, and for the new vehicle. But for fuel quality standard, we already implemented Euro 5. That is the highest level of fuel quality standard in terms of environment. And at that program, we don't do just only new vehicle standard, right? We also do in-use vehicle standard to control air pollution from roadside vehicle, right? And I still have the most successful story for me is the phasing out program of leaded gasoline. At that time, it took Thailand just only 6 years to complete phasing out of leaded gasoline. That is very short time for developing country like us. I how we can do that, because we do like the whole complete systematic of the policy. We start with the producer, the beginning, the business, the refinery group, right, and all the way to end user, that the people. At that time, we did a lot of communication campaign, and we educate our people. Even the government, we implement very aggressive program, but it's acceptable because the people, they know, they understand why we have to do very aggressive like that, because it's impact to their health. So then, of course, sometimes we have like resistance from the community, but we can, make them understand, and we engage all stakeholders. We do incentive and subsidize to the refinery, because we have to take care of stakeholder, not just only to implement the government without any care, right, on economic or social. So that one is quite success story. And we also have the co-benefit as well with the program that we would like to reduce particulate matter, right? We can also reduce more other serious pollutants like carbon monoxide and ozone, right? It's coming with the technology, with new vehicle standard, right? And I believe that this co-benefit, right, is very suitable for our current situation as well. Right now, we need to do like co-benefit policy on air pollution, climate change, and of course, public health. And the success story from Thailand, we share to our neighbor, like Miss Grand Mekong, right? So our neighbor like Lao PDR and Myanmar, we also share to them, and we would like to come together. We don't want to leave any neighbor country behind us. We need to move together as the region for the regional framework of air pollution management. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunsivapon. I'm getting provoked to ask you a follow-up question, but I will keep it for later. Because you mentioned about this aggressive strategy of, of achieving that mission in 6 years, but I will come back to you later. But just to also, reflect on your point of, not, I mean, regional or transboundary air quality regulatory framework. This panel is all, fully in your support. If you think that, and not just panel, I think the entire room is fully in your support. If you think, joining forces with UN organizations and other entities here, feel free to ask. And we are always there to help and support you. Moving to Dr. Kanumnij. Uh, Being a civil society champion as well as an environmental lawyer, tell us your most difficult wins and successes in advocating for the right to clean air. It's a tricky question, but over to you.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether the war is end yet, but we'll see. So, in the meantime, we had the very what we call hardest part of getting the right to clean air written explicitly into the Clean Air Bill. This is the big things in this country and perhaps in the region as well. The next hardest part is to get the state to have three duties within the bill: the duty to respect, protect, and fulfill such right to clean air. So within this bill, it's quite pioneer. It's very innovative in a way and very brave to do such a thing. Why is that? Because the rest of the world does not make it tangible as such. Well, it doesn't mean that this is not strong enough to claim as the legal rights. It's the one type of human rights, whatever. But the way we put it in the tangible, written, well written, and within one chapter is that without written this right in the law, then the people will not have such a thing to catch up and have nothing to use as the instrument to argue, especially argue to the government and to protect themselves as the things that I have the right to protect myself, and the state or the government must have the duty to protect me from the against of other people, from the third persons. The state itself, the government itself, whatever you do on the policy making or project based decision making or any regulatory kind of design, whatever you do on other any issues must respect this kind of right to clean air. So in a way, it's such an innovative and very brave and come before time that some people do not understand, not try to understand, and resist. So we got a very strong argument in academic terms with people around. We had explained a lot to public by using, for example, the term premature death. I expand the right to clean air to connect with other kinds of rights like right to health and then right to death, right to lead to life. Without a good condition in living, you're gonna die prematurely. So linking from one type of human rights to other types of human rights really helpful. This is very helpful in convincing public to see how important of this right to be explicitly written. Also, those politicians try to find the good things to do in their own constituency, support. So finally, thanks to Professor David Boyle, the UN Human Rights said that this law is very innovative kind of legal mechanisms in putting the right base and in making the new other innovative technologies of law like carrot and stick initiatives or expand the we call polluters plus, meaning not only the traditional polluters, but also those who involve or related to or support to the polluters like bankers or financial institutions that should be well aware beforehand that this kind of project gonna be detrimental to the community around once the project is started. So all this stuff, it's hard to fight against those who gonna lose the benefits, but we did, and not sure yet whether this bill gonna be okay in the parliament.
Fingers crossed. But it's the first time that I am listening to a government official and also listening to a civil society. And both of them are rhyming their approach that this needs an aggressive approach. So I think we all are, on this on the same platform. So maybe ask him for your so sustainable finance for climate change. It is increasingly becoming a challenge, and all of us are facing this challenge, right? If you were to share one advice with your experience on overcoming the finance gap to achieve clean air, what would that be?
Thank you. For overcoming the finance gap, there is a need for introducing innovative bonds. For instance, those bonds can raise the money from the domestic market and as well as from the international market, but need to put the regulatory framework in order. For instance, there are two institutions in the country, Pakistan, the State Bank of Pakistan, and the Security Exchange Commission of Pakistan. They do have the provisions to introduce those bonds for the commercial banks. But however, the situation is, are they tradable in the stock markets? Are they able to pull the money from the domestic markets? This is the big question. But there is a journey towards fulfilling those gaps by raising the money from multilateral solutions. For instance, the World Bank, as the Anuj mentioned, the more concessional rates could be offered, and the private sector, the big private sector can come together and introduce the different innovative products that could also raise the money. For instance, one of the civil society in Pakistan, the Kash Foundation, they come up with a bond of gender equity, and that bond is traded in the Pakistan Stock Exchange. Such innovative products, for instance, covering the GHG emissions, backed by the standards and regulatory framework from the state. For instance, right now, Pakistan does not have a GHG emission standards. And because of that, those pollutions coming from the different industrial sector is amalgamating. So we need having a solution by putting the finance together, allowing the private sector to introduce their products and regulate by the Security Commission Pakistan. In this way, when the money goes and the responsibility comes along. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. I think you're facing a grave challenge. Specifically, in all of us are in fact in developing countries. It is definitely the need for joining forces between different financing bodies, even with the government as well as the private sector. So coming to you finally, Joseph, can you share insights? You were mentioning about hydrogen, and other initiatives that Bosch is doing. Can you share insights into Bosch's latest developments in clean mobility, such as hydrogen electric, hybrid vehicle technologies, and their impact on urban air quality?
Yes, thank you for this. I think touching on what Consumer Forum mentioned, when the PCD mandates or legislates emission standards, she mentioned what Euro 6 coming up soon. Of course, there has to be the necessary technologies that will meet these kinds of requirements, right? So for us, we've developed, of course, a comprehensive range of exhaust gas treatment systems that will be able then to meet the required emission regulations. So that's one development already. On the electrification side, we already see the movement towards cars with electric powertrains, hybrids, and even pure BEVs. So we also develop a comprehensive range of components, solutions, and powertrains for this, from the silicon carbide semiconductor chips that have increased power density and enable longer battery life and increased performance, to complete the electric motor, electric drive, and the e-axle system, which is an integrated electric powertrain incorporating the motor, power electronics, and the transmission, with efficiencies going up to 96 to 98%, for example. We also work on braking. One of the pollutants from vehicles, of course, comes from brake dust. When you brake, you wear the brake pads and it emits dust. Cars with electric powertrains like hybrids and pure BEVs have regenerative braking systems. So instead of using friction to brake, you can use the braking energy to recharge the battery. And with these kinds of systems, you can reduce brake dust by up to 95%, for example. So that also helps on reduced pollution. And one thing we haven't touched on, software, because vehicles today are like computers on wheels now. And you need to keep developing vehicle diagnostic software to be able to diagnose, maintain, and service these new kinds of technologies. And we also provide training programs, of course, to workshops so they know how to maintain and service these vehicles. And on hydrogen, of course, we are really developing a lot in the hydrogen fuel cell systems. We already have introduced them in China. We think adoption first will happen for heavy commercial vehicles, where the economies of scale and the economics make more sense in the beginning. And aside from that, we're also developing hydrogen engines, combustion engine technology that burns hydrogen fuel. So these are just some concrete examples of the kinds of innovations that we try to do to support the push towards cleaner air. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. I would have never thought that even braking causes air pollution. It's a learning for me that the brake dust is also a component of air pollution. So, thank you so much. With this, I think we come to the end of the three segments where we happen to learn challenges versus the opportunity approach. And we also happen to learn how innovative partnerships and innovation, has power to energize and synergize, towards air pollution. And we also learned how each of our panel members are leading by examples with their respective organizations championing on clean air solutions. So now the floor is open for audience questions for the next 15 minutes. And this is your time with the panelists. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Thank you. So I want to ask the speaker. I think before that, I want to explain that I come from agriculture business. So we are a seed to shelf business. We have upstream to downstream. So there are plantations, mills, refineries. Imagine the pollutions, right? To address that, we have a emission reduction strategy and also targets following the global standards. Would the speaker say that this emission reduction strategy or targets enough for clean air, to address the clean air issue? Or if it's not enough, maybe what should be added to that emission reduction strategy? Thank you.
Who wants to take that? Yeah, okay.
I can give an example from the Pakistani perspective. The 41% GHG emissions is coming from the agriculture side, the crop burnings and the fertilizers, how they are contributing and damaging our soil. So, in order to provide a solution, we need a precision technology support, which helps to agriculture or a farmer that less fertilizer to use, have a minimum impact on the soil, and the technology could help. And before that technology, the finance should be ready to introduce the new product line to help the farmers, providing a loan to the farmers and provide the enable environment, encouraging them to introduce the new technology. And this technology is backed by the concessional loans that will help to reduce that GHG emissions from the agriculture. Is one of the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. Kun Sivampon, do you want to take that? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Agricultural burning is also one of the most important source of air pollution, right? So I think what we need to do is we need to change behavior, right? And we could make use, we could make valuable to, we get back to the root cause. They do open burning to do agriculture, right? So we need to find alternative for them, right? Like the alternative to not burn by making valuable on your agricultural residue by business model, right? Like in Thailand, we have a lot of best practices. I'm talking with Anush that we need to scale it up to do is like the real business model that can mobilize this community, not just like CS, not CSR, not to give money to the farmer anymore. What we need to change first that mindset, their behavior, and we might need to change how we plan the agriculture, right? We need to change the, like corn, for example, that we plant it at highland, but corn needs water, right? We need to bring the corn down on the flatland, and then we change the type of plant at the highland, the plant that don't need much water, something like that. I think it's very big scale that we need to talk in terms of business model. Thank you.
Anuj?
Yeah, maybe I can also add because fundamentally you've got two things, right? You're looking at your own emissions reduction strategy, so that's your internal one. Maybe you're talking about your container vans as they're traveling, so are they more efficient? You're talking about your cold storage chains, are they more energy efficient? So you're looking at your internal efforts that you can make to reduce emissions reduction. That's your internal. The second is really what can you do to influence where you source your product from. If you're not yourself in growing, if you're not yourself in agriculture, but you're sourcing agricultural produce, what can you do with the farmers to make sure that they are doing things right for the produce, that they are reducing the impact on air pollution. Now, you can either have the very hard stance, which is taken by a number of European agencies, which says, we will not buy from a polluting farmer. But you can't necessarily do that in this part of the world where you also need to make sure that jobs and equity, etc., is there. So what you could do is support underlying farmers to change their practices. The obvious one everybody talks about is harvesting. So do they burn? Do they not burn? If they're not burning, how can you help them with machines? Can the machines come from philanthropic funds, for example, which could come from agencies like the government or development partners? I think that's the two-pronged approach. You're probably very, very good in terms of your own emission reduction strategy. The second part, which Khun Sivapon is talking about, how can companies like yourself help the underlying farmers not lose business, but also transition to becoming clean, green agribusinesses?
Thank you, Anuj. Any more questions? Yeah, maybe Luisa. Yeah, and then Veena.
Thank you. I was very inspired by the gender equity bond example that you gave, Ashim. That's already at the Pakistani Stock Exchange. So I was wondering from how this was set up and how it's going, is there anything we can learn for air pollution? How would that clean air bond look like? And what needs to be in place? And perhaps there's already some lessons we can learn from the gender equity bond example.
Thank you. It's a very innovative approach to raise the funds. And the good money is available in the private sector. For instance, if textile sector, and they aim for a leadership that our emissions will be mitigated by our money in the market and for the forestation in the country. That is the equation in broader sense. Then that bond could raise the money and they will promise they will not do it as a greenwashing. And we have seen the private sector is also accelerating with the corporate social responsibility and the greenwashing thing. So if the good intent is there, then they raise the money from the market and the regulation is supported that bond and that money will raise, and then private sector have a national goal for this much of the emissions they are producing. And now there is a deforestation in the country X province, and they will invest in there. So based on those investments, the equity will come, and then they will providing the dividend to their bonds shareholders through the stock market. I think it's a perfect idea.
Anuj, do you want to, because you were mentioning about clean air bonds as well?
Yeah, I think three things, probably taking what Ashim says, three things that you need, I think, for adapting any bond to clean air. Number one, framework. So the framework for the use of the money, it has to be according to some national or international standard that says this is a clean air project. So use of money. I think the second is in terms of having an implementing unit which can develop the project pipeline. Big issue, we can raise the money, but we may not always be able to use it. And the third is blending. So, blending, it's very difficult to talk about bonds without blending it with concessional money to make it affordable in an issue like clean air or coastal protection. Those are the two areas where bankability is not so simple. So doing a bond may be easy. Applying it to projects which are not bankable is very tough. So the third part is blending it with concessional money.
Thank you so much, Anuj. So there are two questions. There's one, Veena, and then you. Maybe we can club the two questions and then give it to the panelists. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I want to raise a bit of the elephant in the room question. So you hear a lot about the issue of needing concessionary financing, and it's definitely needed because this is not commercial. You cannot be commercially financing clean air projects. My bigger question is, and it's a regional issue, it all goes back to the whole issue of the global north literally exporting their air pollution to this region of the world. And it's a perfect business model, right? So if you look back historically, factories did move, right, from the global north to global south. It started since the early 1990s with the whole globalization movement. Brilliant business model, right? Because you've got the factories right next to the world's highest density in terms of population. So your customer is here. The impact of it, as we economists talk about, is externality. And we're paying with it with literally our lives. And we're burning each other to death, right? So I hear talk about agriculture. It's not just the small farmers. They're not burning for fun. They're not burning because of some mythical understanding. They're burning because they're part of a larger agro-industry supply chain, right? So that is it. That's the same with the industry. That's across the board, across the region, in Thailand and regionally. So my question really goes back to accountability, right? Our friend talked about how only about 1% to 2% of global climate finance is targeting on air quality. So there's no responsibility at a global level. There is on climate change, but air quality is starkly missing. So I think from the region, we do need to have that dialogue to say, well, how do we take accountability to the right place? Whether it's corporate accountability, whether it is state accountability coming back from, honestly, the governments in the global north and saying, hey, we all live under the same stratosphere. And this is something we all need to collectively solve. And I think as a region, that dialogue needs to be triggered, and wondered if anybody or any agency or anybody has initiated that discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Veena. We will take inputs on the accountability maybe from across the panel. It's a very interesting question. Yes, your question, please.
Thank you, Freen, and thank you, colleagues, for the very interesting conversation. I think we have here about the negative impact of air pollution, for example, on productivity, right? So, and this apply also to other climate-related issues like heat stress, etc. For example, I'm curious to know if maybe from Joseph, right? So, private sector and company like Bosch is actually investing in mitigation interventions targeting workforces, for example, in your company. And given that actually those elements affect also informal sector, I wonder whether the financing mechanism that have been discussed can be also utilized to finance and fund more systemic programs. And focusing on workers, both formal and informal, could be one element, one project of a bigger programs, which look at obviously the environmental aspect, but also mitigating the effect, looking at more adaptation, and looking at cohort like women workforce that are most affected very often in this context. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe, Joseph, do you want to take that question first, and then I'll go across the panel on the accountability one.
Yeah, I understood the question was on the impact on the workforce. Well, I could definitely, I think it was also mentioned earlier in the panel that we, of course, focus a lot on internal efforts to mitigate our own emissions and so on. Actually, on scope 1 and scope 2 types of emissions, which are emissions generated from our own locations, we've been carbon neutral since 2020. And we're definitely working on targets to reduce our scope 3 emissions, which are emissions upstream from our supply chain and also downstream from the emissions generated from the products, our products when they're being used. So that's definitely something that is on our radar. Aside from just the carbon emissions, we also have set targets for ourselves on energy efficiency, electricity savings, water conservation, and even on the circular economy, reducing scrappage, wastage, using recycled materials, finding second life uses for components, and so on. Even on our sites, solar panels and so on, these are classic things that I think most companies are already doing. It's a bit indirect in terms of the impact to the workforce, but I would say that by acting responsibly as a company, then people who work for us are contributing to this effort for more sustainability. And you also mentioned about diversity. Definitely, that's also one of the sustainability development goals that we have set. And diversity is one of our values as well. And I can tell you that we definitely have a very diverse workforce in terms of gender, in terms of nationality. I think we have well over 20 different nationalities working for us here in Thailand. Yeah, I would say that these are all factors that we definitely look into and try to develop. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
My response to your question in a civil society perspective, I think in a scope 3, there should be some regulation which allows the developing countries to introduce the ETS in their own stock markets. The developed countries should allow the developing countries to trade in. The private sector should come with the different projects and get the finance credit in terms of the carbon markets. That could help to address the scope 3 emissions. Second is allowing the private sector and also the civil societies to empowering the communities. For empowering the communities, need a clear path, backed by the state banks of their respective countries and innovative products, which helps to translate as air pollution is a solvable problem and it can raise the more money and it's also available in the market. So it's coming into the business. It's not only the slogan and stuff like that. It's just on the business model because we share the planet, we share the air, and we want to live and our generation wants to live healthy. So scope 3 can come with a product line which is innovative. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. Thank you, Joseph. Anuj, do you want to start with the accountability response?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. And, I seem to think of everything in structures. So 3 things: dialogue, incentives, and penalties. Dialogues are happening. One of your questions, are they happening? The clearest example of that is the ASEAN Secretariat, just talking about where we are. The ASEAN Secretariat has great convening power. They've pulled together ASEAN governments. They've created something called the ASEAN Haze-Free Investment Framework. So they are working on it. Agencies like ourselves pull together countries from across Asia. We conduct policy dialogues in terms of exchanging how best we can approach this. In fact, yesterday there was a big conference going on over here called the Greater Mekong Subregion, GMS, Regional Cooperation Plan Program, which is going on right now, which invites many of the countries from the ASEAN region to talk about how we go forward, including PRC. So so there is a system of dialogues which is happening, which is talking about how we can work together across regions. The second thing is penalties and standards. So, clearly where a country or a region, the EU, for example, or Thailand or other countries put a framework together saying, this is best practice, private sector then adheres to it. It helps them think about, how they actually have their own practices going forward. But it has to go along with your own country's enforcement mechanism. So I've been in some countries, a few years ago, where very strong penalty structures on what you should or shouldn't do, very poor enforcement structures, domestic companies doing things like production of leather products, for example, were freely polluting the rivers and waters, and there was no enforcement. So there is that responsibility also remains with the government at hand, local government or national government. The third part, which I think is very, very strong, is financial incentives. So whether you take a bond structure or you take a credit structure like biodiversity credits or clean air credits, there the power of finance can really help public and private sector companies or entities which are polluting transition, right? Change how you farm, change how you produce paper, but you need financial incentives for that. I think that mixture of approach has to be required, not just dialogue, but this system of incentives and financial and penalties.
Dr. Kanongnich, do you want to take the accountability question from your fellow co-founder?
Well, we had the so-called carrot and stick, one of mechanism in our clean air bill, which is trying to marry between the two things that normally not go together well, in trying to put it as the use during the transition of the changing of bad behavior to the better one. When we talk about carrot, it means the incentive legislation that give you probably the benefits in some ways, and try to change the behavior by giving the incentive or that kind of package of financing stuff. For the stick side is about the punishment. If you did something wrong, you have penalties, you have civil sanctions, etc., put in jail, etc. So the two things can be arranged together as a pair, but must be careful, don't mix it up. Otherwise, it's gonna be used as the greenwashing that easy. So talking a lot about the clean air bond, or in my case, we create the clean air fund in the clean air bill, trying to do somewhat similar, but in smaller scale and very, very new in particular when you want to put it aside of the ordinary budgetary system of the government, by initiate the separate earmark, bond come from the specific the charge from polluters. So this is the innovative mechanism that trying to convince the polluters to become the solution providers, and try to help the small scale agriculture who wants to go together with the package of the clean air bus. So this is still new, but hopefully it's going to work out all right.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kanonich. Kunsivapon? No comments. Well, I just have one input to share here. So accountability has been a fundamental challenge, and the commission that I head, the secretariat for our common air, the powerful pool of commissioners actually thought that it is important to let something out in the public and initiate a dialogue on accountability, because yes, there is data. Yes, urban bodies are monitoring PM 2.5. But what are they doing after monitoring to PM 2.5? Are they naming and shaming the entities? I think it is also a topic of global discussion, because there is rarely any government body that literally has accountability mechanism. So we have published a paper which only focuses on city level, country level, regional level, and global level accountability. And happy to share with whoever's interested. Please reach out to me. And maybe Joseph, do you want to speak about accountability? No. Okay. Asim? Yes, of course.
In terms of accountability, I see that there should be an international framework for accountability and multi-level solutions. For instance, this is the only planet we share all. If we lose it, so nobody will have any benefit from it. So it should be a global structure. There should be every state, which is sovereign, every institution comes underneath the sovereign state, should go beyond the pledges. There must be a compliance regime in the world. No more pledges, no more hi, share. There is a more serious business. So air pollution, we cannot see it, but that's the problem which is damaging us for our new generation as well. So accountability comes in multilateral solutions. That's my take.
Thank you, Asim. So, mindful of the fact that we are standing between you and the lunch. So, maybe, I can ask one final wrapping question. I know I had two, but now I changed my mind. And it's going to be one and a very solid question. Look, I think this panel is a very powerful panel, and I feel it is a waste if we let the panel go without this final soft pledge that I'm looking at. So, my question to all the panelists together, do you think there is a need for a regional call to action to combat air pollution? And if yes, what do you think would be the idea of your commitment and collaboration towards this kind of a regional call to action? Starting with Anuj.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just, literally scribbling over here as we're going through. There is definitely need for a call for action for the region, which puts together partners such as public and private sector, but also governments from across the region, maybe with a convener such as the ASEAN Secretariat or ourselves. What we can bring together to that is, technical assistance to develop the flow of things, develop, climate bonds or clean air bonds, a financing facility, etc. That will require technical assistance, innovative financial instruments, etc. But also support for developing your 10 or 15 anchor projects, right? What demonstrates that it's happened in somewhere and then can be replicated. And then also brings together a coalition of partners who can bring some of this sovereign concessional financing together. I think that would be the call to action that, sort of I would say would be meaningful and impactful. And I think if we can then also bring in the power of, committees like yourselves with, sort of very, very senior politicians from our countries who can show the intent to make something happen, that sort of would be a loose sort of a structure I'd put together for a regional initiative.
Thank you, Anuj. Dr. Kanungnij?
Well, we can improve and upgrade the original kind of agreement or platform under ASEAN, like ASEAN Human Rights Declaration or ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution, which focus too much on disaster but not in clean air kind of management. And also, we had the so-called AISHA, ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, that are working on developing the kind of platform to improve the right to a safe and clean and sustainable environment as such. So all these are kind of initiatives that already existed around the region, plus the fact that each country in the region, for example, Singapore already established the Transboundary Haze Pollution Act. Malaysia, I'm not sure have it or not. Thailand working on the Clean Air Bill. And if other countries around the region do similar things at the same time, in terms of international lawyer, we call it as the international best practice, which become custom or tradition, finally can be legally binding according to the status as a source of international law. And without written law, this can be somewhat more or less binding in such a sense. So yes, whatever platform, go ahead, dialogue, declaration, MOU, whatsoever, do it. Just take action and action now because we already late, too late. Most people pay too much attention on the climate change issue, which is not I didn't mean that it's not important. It's important, but clean air was overlooked too long. It's now to make the backward to see and live out the importance of this issue and try to tackle the transboundary mission altogether.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kalunish. The time is now. Go and take action. That's really powerful. Okay, Konsuapon.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. We need a call for action that, like what Thailand is doing and have been doing, like take transboundary haze, for example, right? We initiate haze-free ASEAN roadmap, Chiang Rai plan of action, also clear sky strategy. But when we talk about disagreement, we focus just only one source of air pollution. But for me, I think it's not enough, right? Because air pollution, we have three main sources. We didn't talk about the short form industry and transport at regional level yet. So what I'm thinking about, we should have we set common goal together. We're gonna beat air pollution in our region first. Then we think regionally, but we act locally. Make it easy to act. Don't make it too complicated. Is it too complicated? It's very easy and you cannot get it, right? So maybe we could start with Mekong sub-region, right? Because we are close, we have the same root cause, we understand each other, and we need, as I said in the beginning, that data is power. We need data first. We should have like clean air data center in Mekong sub-region, something like that. And then we can go ahead with the policy and act exactly right for our region. Thank you.
So we have a yes from our Miss Mekong. Thank you. Thank you. Joseph.
Okay, well, not to keep everyone in suspense, but of course, yes, we of course support call to action for clean air. I think that what we from the private sector can do is to contribute. You know, when I think Consumer mentioned it, you need data, you need science, you need what is possible. Yeah, so setting standards on cleaner air. Then from the private sector, we can tell you what can we do, what can be done, what technologies, innovations, solutions are available, and what can be achieved. At least, you know, as long as we continue to develop technological innovations, of course, then the march goes on. And we're happy, of course, to work with all the different stakeholders for data transparency and even explaining what can current levels of technology do, what's possible, and what could be possible in the future. Then roadmaps towards systematic approaches to cleaner emissions, cleaner standards, cleaner regulations can be planned and mapped out. I'd also like to reiterate what was mentioned also. The carrot and stick or incentive frameworks are essential because the only way to make it sustainable is that it has to be economically viable. We always think of sustainability in three aspects: environment or ecological, the social aspect, and also the economic aspect. Only by having the right balance of these three can you really make a sustainable push and make progress. Otherwise, then we might get stuck only at the dialogue stage. So, fully supporting frameworks, policy frameworks that really try to address both the incentives and the regulations to try to drive cleaner, cleaner air forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. So yes, from the private sector too. My last panelist, we want a yes from you as well.
Of course, yes. So we see that there should be approach from the softer instrument to the compliance. Softer one is a climate diplomacy, and the compliance one is developing as such a regional platform which reports every year and have a very clear aim and vision and the paths. For instance, we shared the air shed, 6 air shed among these countries. So this is our own problem. So we own our problem and we will find the solutions and share the data together and find the solution together. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. So by now, all of you have understood this was not a speaking panel, but it was a doing panel. It was an action driven panel. So we are going ahead with our plans. If you want to join hands with us, please feel free to join us. I can literally say on behalf of UNDP, Sarah will, coordinate and collaborate with all the stakeholders here on the stage. And if you'd be interested, please do join hands because we will come together for a regional call to action on the right to clean air very soon. So stay tuned and thank you so much. I'm not summarizing the discussion as traditional panels, but just requesting all of you. So if you think you can contribute, you can support, you can collaborate, please do reach out to us. And the panel will continue to engage and come back with some action-oriented stuff next year. Thank you so much.